Adam, many thanks for joining us. Now, exclusive details of another big shake-up in commercial radio. Britain's biggest radio group, home to Johnny Vaughan, is to rebrand almost a dozen of its ILR music stations to create a national rival to BBC Radio 1. Sky's business correspondent, Darshini David, joins me from outside Capital Radio in central London with the details. Darshini, nice to see you. What's the deal?
Well, Jeff, Capital Radio is, of course, a familiar brand to many listeners in London, but we can exclusively reveal here on the red carpet, well, almost red carpet, in Leicester Square, that it's going to become a national brand. As you say, the owners, the Global Radio Group, are going to rebrand a number of stations around the country, including Galaxy ones, to take on Radio 1, create a national capital network. But it's more than just changing the name over the door, because although things like the Drive Show, the Breakfast Show will remain local, as will the local news, some listeners are going to see some changes as well. I don't know if you're a fan of Roberto and the Bassman. Those are two of the big-name DJs here at Capital Radio in London. They'll be broadcasting across the nation. In addition to that, as well as listeners, the Global Group hopes this is going to bring more advertising cash, perhaps, as well. That's the backbone, of course, of commercial radio, because, of course, the Capital brand is one that agencies here in London, the big advertising agencies, are very familiar with, and that, of course, the Group hopes will be a winner.
Is there any precedent for this kind of shake-up, Darshini?
Well, Heart. Heart, that, of course, is one of the brands also owned by Global, and that, of course, was a similar move. We saw the group come in and say, actually, we're going to take 33 of our radio stations there, rebrand them, and, in fact, they've consolidated some of them to create a national network there. Now, they say that's actually increased the number of listeners listening to the Heart brand, and it's becoming a viable alternative to Radio 2. But, of course, locally, sometimes that doesn't always wash well. We've heard some campaigns to bring back some local Heart DJs who've been forsaken for the national ones. And the same, of course, could happen here, because while you're going to see some of the London DJs becoming capital national names now, that could spell bad news for some of the more regional DJs, and that may not go down well with some loyal listeners.
Darshini, many thanks. Now, the Chief Executive of Global Radio, Stephen Miron, is with me at the Gherkin to discuss this. Stephen, nice to see you.
Good evening, Jeff.
Why are you doing all this?
Well, the opportunity of creating the largest commercial radio hit music network seemed quite a compelling one, particularly when you think that this is the biggest change in commercial radio since 1973. And the fact that now there is a genuine competitor to Radio 1, Radio 2 and Radio 3 seems something that should have happened, and we're delighted and very proud of the fact that Global are going to be leading it.
Now, you're up against the monster that is the BBC. Are you one of those who would like to see its wings clipped, or are you man enough for the competition?
Well, we're certainly up for the competition. If you look at what we achieved with the Heart network, as your reporter referred to, we took 3 stations with an audience of just 3 million, have taken that to now 7.8 million, and in doing so have really changed the way people are looking at radio in the UK. And we've had great successes taking on the BBC. If you look at London on its own, Heart has beaten Radio 2 for the first time ever in London, according to the latest audience figures. So we're certainly up for the challenge. We believe we've got the stations where we can do it. But at the same token, you know, we think that the BBC probably has too much power.
Why is it always music stations that takes on the BBC? Why have we never really had a commercial Radio 4?
Well, we've obviously got within the portfolio LBC as well, and LBC has achieved huge success in London. The reality of it is...
That's in London.
It is in London.
If you're a taxi driver, everybody's heard of it, but up there in Manchester, they haven't.
Well, I mean, obviously with the way that you can listen to radio now on multi-platform, the opportunity to listen to LBC is greater than just London, and we've had significant audience success. But bear in mind, Classic FM has achieved an audience of 5.6 million.
But that takes on Radio 3.
It does, and Radio 3 only has an audience of 1.8 million. So head-to-head in that market, we've beaten...
Well, there we go. So why not go head-to-head with Radio 4? Why not give the Today programme a run for its money? Well, take on John Humphreys. That's a daunting task.
Well, I think the answer is we'd obviously like to have your services, Jeff, if you're up for that when we do that.
Oh, I'm very easy to get. I think, the boss is listening to this.
He certainly he's outside. But we have, you know, big challenge. First job we'd like to get right is get capital out to as many people as we can. We want to make it as attractive as possible to advertisers. We've done that with Heart. Global's only been going 2 years. I think, you know, sometimes people lose sight of the fact that we are a very new, young, dynamic media company. And what we've achieved in 2 years, I think, is pretty impressive.
And very briefly, Steve, that planned strike by the BBC, that must be music to your ears, if I can use that pun.
Well, I think the fact that it just shows yet again that the BBC is going through its own challenges. I mean, for us, we're not really focused purely on the BBC. There are great challenges within the radio industry that we're facing up to, and I think the brands that we're launching, the work that we're going to be doing with Capital, puts us in a very, very strong position going forward.
Steve Miron, many thanks for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you.
This is Jeff Randall Live. Coming up after the break, capital cushion or financial straitjacket? Will new rules make global banks any safer?
Very good morning to you. This is Sunrise on Sky News. Breaking news from a series of explosions have been heard.
For the rest of us, it's sunny with some showers in the north. Dedicated advice lines for small businesses will also be...
Time now to take a look through the front pages of the morning newspapers.
Live here on Sky News.
The sports headlines, here's Jackie.
Portsmouth fans are in need of some good news. World number one went 3-0 down.
From the Sunrise team, have yourselves a good day. We'll see you bright and early in the morning from 6 o'clock.
I feel we might have taken too long for me to feel. What's that you said about it?
Welcome to the Ford Standard.
Wouldn't it be useful if your current account looked after more than just your money?